We are live! Woohoo! Good morning, everyone. We are For Fork's Sake Live, and we are joining you. Oops, I'm rattling my. There we go. And we're joining you at kind of an off time this. But our topic this morning is mothers as guardians of children's nutrition. And even though we're calling it mothers because we are all ladies here, but that is not to exclude those fathers out there who are also very diligent about their children's nutrition. So I'm going to go around the horn. I'm going to adjust this just slightly. There we go. I'm going to go around the horn. We're all going to... Ooh, that's really interesting. I just got a really interesting echo. Oh, I see where that's coming from. Hang on, we're having technical difficulties. Bingo. There we go. Okay, sorry, technical difficulties there. All right, we're back on. So we're going to go around the horn. Everyone's going to introduce themselves and talk about what they're eating. I will start. I'm Dawn Alden, and with Danny Bryant, who is away on a super important secret mission right now, but hopefully will join us later. We started this crazy idea almost a year ago to talk about women, food, and body politics. And it's been an amazing journey, and I'm looking forward to today's topic of discussion. I am eating, do you guys remember sugar corn pop snacks?
Yeah.
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 This is totally the healthy version of that. It's puffed corn by a company called Arrowhead Mills with some flaxseed milk because I'm lactose and nut intolerant. Yay! And also in honor of Danny, a plate full of cantaloupe.
Ah.
Yes. And of course, my morning coffee. Yes. All right, who's next?
I'll go next. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I am Tina Sanchez, and I am a mom of a 5-year-old. So I'm going to show off my little to-go things because, as every mom knows, you are always on the go and you always need food around because you never know when they might be hungry. So here I have my little reduce, reuse, recycle Starbucks cup, but it's plastic, so it has a cold beverage in it, not a hot one, all you health-conscious people out there. It is a yogurt smoothie. It's persimmon from the farmer's market and homemade yogurt. With organic milk, non-fat. And here is my little to-go box that I just love. I just found this at Target the other day. I've been looking for a great salad container. This is a Sistema, $5 at Target. Take this off. Yeah, and you have your little inside here, little compartment with tuna and toasted pine nuts. It's American tuna. Ever look for American tuna? That's hard to find. And my little salad on the inside. You just dump, and it's got the little utensils on the bottom. Awesome. Who's next?
Very cool.
I can go.
Very cool.
Okay. So I am Kate Cairns, and I am an assistant professor in childhood studies at Rutgers at the Camden campus. So I'm actually in my office right now, and so I have a packed lunch, which is a salad with chickpeas and seeds and all kinds of delicious things in it. And I also have cantaloupe, although I pre-baked in packed lunch form with me today. So it's funny speaking across time zones, meaning that we're eating different meals of the day. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had a gal on from Australia at one point, and she was having her afternoon meal while we were having dinner the previous night.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So, Ray Dawn, go for it.
Hi, I'm Ray Dawn Hattinger, and I am many things. One of them is a mom to a 9-year-old son with autism. and I am one of the leaders of the Los Angeles chapter of TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. So that's sort of why I'm here, and I'm having a, even though it's, I don't know, it's lunchish time, Dawn and I are in the same time zone, I'm having some organic minestrone soup, and I have a quarter of my bagel left. It's a UD Mighty Bagel, gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free, nut-free, and I'm drinking in my birthday mug some dandelion tea. Yeah, it's not my birthday, but...
Oh, I was going to say.
Oh, no. It's not my birthday, but it is my birthday mug. So, dandelion tea.
Happy birthday anyway.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Whenever it was, right?
Yeah, whenever it was.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, I'm having breakfast because I don't have children, so this is still, you know, I just rolled out of bed. My four-legged child is lying on the ground next to me, so. When we first started doing these for Fork's Sake, we started with topics that Danny and I, that were near and dear to our hearts and that we had spoken about and created work about before. But as we're getting to the end of the year, we're now venturing into the territory of topics that Danny and I know very little about, but we want to learn about. And so we set up these for Fork's Sake for us to learn, as well as for hopefully our audience to learn. So as I mentioned, the only children that I've ever had have had 4 legs and been furry. So their nutrition is a slightly different challenge, and not nearly as challenging a challenge. So I am going to mostly turn the conversation over to you guys on this, since you are our experts. So I guess, Ray Dawn, I'm going to start with you because I know that you and I have spoken about this before, about the things that you have specifically found about how nutrition affects your child with autism.
Right. For a lot of kids who are on the spectrum, a gluten-free, casein-free diet can be extremely beneficial. The science behind it is basically that a lot of kids with autism have something called leaky gut syndrome, which is basically where the food makes it through the intestines. It sort of leaks through the intestines before it's fully digested. So the brain doesn't see it as what it actually is, especially with gluten, casein, and soy. It sees it as an opiate, which is why a lot of kids might be like laugh inappropriately, or they might just stare off kind of in a phase. So a lot of kids on the spectrum have digestion issues. And so we started with the, and also, you know, gut inflammation and yeast as well. So we started with the gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free diet when Henry was 3.5. He's 9 now. I didn't really think that I would see anything because I didn't think that he was like a gastro kid. I thought, you know, but he didn't have any language at that point, very minimal. And after I had him, and you've got it, when you go on the diet for autism, you've got to be very strict about it. You can't have any cross-contamination. You can't cheat. Because the smallest amount can really affect them. So after about 3 months on, we put dairy back in his diet, and he had started gaining language. But when we put dairy in that day, in 24 hours, within less than 24 hours, he lost 70% of his language and stopped following directions. He was really, really affected by dairy. And then we got that back out, we put gluten back in, and he just got really cranky and cried a lot with gluten. So it's been a really great way to heal his gut and start his recovery process. And now he's doing really, really great. However, we just started a new diet now that is because he had very, very high fructose levels. So now it's basically paleo with limited fruit. He can have fruit twice a day. No tropical fruit, no honey, no maple syrup. So we're back on almonds, but everything's sweetened with stevia or xylitol. I can't even use bananas to sweeten it. So it's been even more challenging, but the more he's on the diet, the better he eats. Before the diet, all he ate was gluten and casein, and now it took years. It took years, but he'll eat anything we put in front of him, which is a relief. He'll complain about it, but he'll eat it.
For any mom, I would imagine that's a miracle.
Yeah.
Sure is.
Perfect.
We used to do these little cheers. Chew the chicken. Chew the chicken. And I would bribe him with chocolate cake to get him to eat fried chicken. I mean, he did not like to chew, because a lot of kids on the spectrum can also have like sensory issues and chewing difficulties. Right. So that's sort of where our perspective is.
Cool. And for those...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Just a quick clarification. For those in the audience who may not know casein is dairy.
Yes, and other whey and things.
And whey and dairy products and stuff like that. Yeah. So sorry, Tina, you were saying.
No, isn't it specifically it's the milk protein, isn't it? Is it?
I mean, you can have ghee, the clarified butter, but yeah, so it's the protein that's in that. Yeah. Exactly.
Which is so amazing, because I mean, how many years have mothers, especially in the United States, been just pummeled with this message: get your kids to drink their milk? You know, I'm so curious about how your diet has affected your whole family. It's just you and your son, and how many members of your nuclear?
3 of us, my husband. Yeah, it's. I mean, at first it was really challenging. Because my husband didn't want anything, he wanted his, dairy and butter and cream, and he wanted, so for a long time, but before the diet I was making multiple meals because I just couldn't get Henry to eat anything, so I was making them all for him, but so it was a challenge, but and it's also, you have to be good at finding gluten-free products that aren't horrible, but now I'm an expert, so you can ask Dawn, because she's had Thanksgiving at my house, and hi, and I can make pretty much anything.
Carla!
Anything that's gluten-free tastes delicious.
Cool.
Yeah, but
she's a pretty amazing gluten-free, casein-free cook.
But
I've had some stuff over there that's great.
Yeah, now I basically just do one meal. I mean, for everybody. So we basically have a protein and a vegetable for dinner, and eggs for breakfast or whatnot. We still, my husband Dave eats his own bread, and Henry eats his coconut almond bread, and they're both happy as can be. But now it's easy. It's great. We're all feeling better, and also before the diet too. I mean, I was feeding Henry crap. Just what every typical mom does, mac and cheese and goldfish and all that horrible stuff. So while it's super expensive to do it, because we also eat organic as much as possible, he eats so much better than any other kid in his school that we know. I mean, he just, he eats so much better, and we all do now.
Nice. Thank you. I just want to take a moment to introduce Chef Carla Contreras, who has joined us with Ella.
Hi.
Hi, Carla.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's challenging with a newborn to do anything.
Yeah.
I believe
absolutely.
that. Good job. Good job making it.
Yesterday, so we're having a challenging time, but she is adorable, and her smile makes it worth it.
Absolutely.
Carla, how old is your girl?
She's 3 months.
Woo!
Oh.
Yeah, 3 months. 3 months yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah.
How's she sleeping?
Oh my goodness. 2 to 3 times a night. I'm breastfeeding, so it's 2 to 3 times a night that I'm feeding her. And she's up by 6, usually 5:36. So it's it's rough.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you want to say? Do you want to say a quick intro? we introduced ourselves at the beginning, but let us know who you are and how you got involved with food, and yeah.
Okay. So I'm Carla. I'm a chef by trade. I've been working in professional kitchens for about 18 years, believe it or not. It's the only thing that I've ever done. And about 5 years ago, I switched to doing only healthy food because I became a private chef. And I actually cooked for a lot of moms postpartum and did kids' food. So now that I have my own baby, it's totally focused on healthy food, which is really interesting. Like, the more I read about it, it's incredible the amount of information about not only pregnancy, but postpartum and kids' food and what you should feed your kid. It's actually overwhelming. And it's snack time here for me because, again, I'm breastfeeding, so I eat a lot of food. I have a green smoothie. It's avocado, spinach, a homemade almond milk, and yeah, that's about it. And I'm dairy and gluten-free because of her belly. She had colic really bad, so it helped with colic. And I would have never known that, but I have an integrative pediatrician that helped me with that.
That's where I'm coming from too, Carla. My son's gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free, nut-free, and a lot of other things too.
Wow, I think I'm the only representative with a child that has absolutely no food allergies at all. No kind of. And he's got a pretty expansive palate, but it's which is lucky. But I'm sure at some point we'll get into the behavior of children and trying to get them to eat, which I'm sure is universal regardless of what you might have going on.
Absolutely. Well, yeah.
I was just going to ask Tina, how old is he?
My son is 5.
Okay, right. You said that before. Okay.
Yeah. And also, I think I'm the only one with an adopted child, which, if you think about the genetics and the potential, for health issues in the future and what you might be susceptible to and things like that. There's another little complication. We have no idea.
Right.
Yeah. You can't check back to family history to see if there's anything indicated there. Yeah. So, Tina, you opened the door. Why don't you go ahead and start that discussion about the difficulty of getting children to eat what you would like them to eat?
Well, yeah, it's incredibly it's challenging, not only because they're built to be picky. I mean, I never thought of it this way, but it makes perfect evolutionary sense that children would be picky and skeptical of almost everything you put in front of them, because if you think about it, long ago, the people who were just willing to put anything in their mouths are going to put something poisonous in their mouth and die.
Right.
So those people probably died out along the way, right? And so what we have is the humans have just been, little by little, we're pickier and pickier, and those are the people who live. And so they really depend on us, the loving adults in their lives, to put the right things in their mouths, and we have to battle this skepticism that they approach almost every food with. And and what I found when my child started growing, when they're little, they kind of eat anything or most things, and they just don't realize how much choice they ultimately have. But once they start discovering this whole, I can control my life a little bit by refusing things, or by having a tantrum, or any of these kid tactics that some of us probably remember using as when we were children. So then things get complicated, and the negotiations and everything. But what really helped me out was the kind of the medical establishment is really pushing this idea of the parents provide healthy foods. They control what's offered, but the child really has to be in control of what they actually put in their mouth. There's no negotiation. Food is not a reward. Food is not a punishment. But at the same time, you are still controlling what's offered. So it took a long time to absorb that, coming from, I think a lot of us came from a background of, you better finish what's on your plate, you know, because I put it there, and children are starving, and you know, it's kind of a power issue. Food, I think, was used as discipline, to kind of establish, look, I'm in charge and you are not. You know, parents are in charge. So so it's a little foreign to just allow your child the freedom to say, yeah, I'm done. I've had 3 carrot sticks, and I'm not going to try that piece of meat that's on my plate, and I'm not going to drink any of my milk, and I'm going to head off to my play date or my karate class or whatever, having had 3 carrot sticks. And then you, as the mom, know what's going to happen. 2 hours later, end of karate class, someone is emotional and melting down and just, oh, Mommy, why can't I have a transformer now? Because you had 3 carrot sticks, and I'm not allowed to bribe you to get you to eat more. So, welcome to my world.
Sounds like you're doing a great job.
Absolutely. Kate, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this?
Yeah, sure. So I'll jump in to say, so I don't have kids myself. I've done research with kids and also with moms, and I think that food is an amazing lens onto so many complexities of our lives, right? Issues of identity, and as you said, you know, kind of struggles over power and control, and issues of kind of culture, but also inequality. And so I should say I'm coming at this as a sociologist. Importantly, not a nutritionist, you know, right. Not a dietitian. Like, that's not my expertise at all. But rather, the research that I've been doing most recently is looking at really just the immense pressures on mothers in relation to feeding their children. So if you think about, you know, you all sound like you're doing amazing, wonderful jobs, but you've all also mentioned so many pressures already, right? Or, you know, Ray Dawn, even just talking about the amount of work that's gone into kind of reworking your family diet in a way that sounds like is really beneficial for your son, but still it's been, you know, hard and requires, as you know, you said, money and time and labor in lots of ways. Right. Or, you know, Carla, when you were talking about feeling totally overwhelmed with all of this information that is bombarding so many mothers about, you know, feed them this way, no that way, no, you know, include this item or that, or this is the best strategy, or, and then, you know, finally this question around picky eaters, where, you know, I love that story, Tina, and I think it's interesting that, you know, you had taken a very kind of informed approach to feeding your kid in a way that kind of respects his autonomy and his choices, but, you know, you can imagine someone passing judgment if your kid has a meltdown because thinking, oh, he must not have had it like the proper meal before food, right? You know, which is totally uncalled for, but I think it's it's a recognition of how much pressure I think there is on mothers, and how much their children's eating practices and then various aspects of their health that are seen to be connected to eating are seen as a reflection of mothering practices in ways that are really difficult to achieve. And so, you know, and having done research with women who, many of whom think of food as such an important way of, you know, expressing love and care and passing on family traditions and sharing kind of relationships, but also feel a lot of pressure to try to live up to, in some ways, you know, unachievable standards for how we envision how a successful mother feeds their children. So that's my kind of entry in this conversation.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, my friends who have had kids have told me that everyone has an opinion about the way that they should be raising their children.
Yeah.
And is not afraid to voice it to them.
And one thing that I'd be interested to hear if other folks, if this resonates with you at all, but one thing that we found in our research, in addition to the difficult pressures of, like you said, for instance, the expense of feeding your child organic, right? It's an option that's just not available to lots of families. But one thing is that some women who I've spoke with have said, mothers get judged for not caring enough about food, but mothers also get judged for seeming to care too much about food, right? Like if you're seen as being like obsessive or kind of rigid, that there's also a penalty that comes with that. So I don't know if you've run into that at all, but to me it seems like this very difficult balancing act to be, caring just the right amount. But
I think that for me, anyway, with regard to that, it is that so many people understand the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing with Henry, that I don't get a lot of judgment. I get a lot of questions from people, but they've been incredibly respectful because they understand the purpose behind it.
That's so good. That's really good.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard for my mother-in-law because she just, she just wanted to, again, show her love to him through food, and because I think that, I want to do that too. But I can't. But yeah, people have been incredibly respectful. But as I've become a mother, one thing I realize is that everybody's going to do it differently. And if it works for you, and it works for you with breastfeeding, with not breastfeeding, with what you feed your kids, and it just made me a lot happier to try to pull back from the judgment.
That's great.
Yeah. Carla, as someone who's sort of in the food field, did you find that you had mentioned earlier that you felt like there was so much information out there that you were dealing with? How do you sift through that and find what's best for you and your child?
I think what we said, taking the things that mean, or can be part of your family are awesome, and just get rid of the rest. Like anything that applies to you, great, and be flexible. Like I thought, I was with a midwife and a doula the entire time. And they didn't want me to have sugar. I couldn't have any processed food. It was definitely, I ate healthier when I was pregnant, and now that I am postpartum than I ever have. And it's just really an interesting shift for me to be eating that way, but I don't think every person could do that. I don't think it could apply to every single person. And I think the best thing that happened to me, Ella was an emergency C-section, so I didn't get the magical water birth that I wanted because she was breached, and the cord was wrapped around her neck twice. So I ended up doing a C-section, and thank God that everything was okay, but really in that moment I just kind of let go of all these ideas of like it has to be a certain way, because with children we have to let go, and they're going to be picky, and they're not going to, Ella's not going to want to pick stuff from our garden sometimes, she's going to grow up, not wanting to do all of the things that I want to do because I'm so immersed in this food world, and it's almost every single thing that I do, it just seems so much for me, because food is not only what I read, not only what I watch on TV, it's my business as well, so it seems like I'm immersed in this world of 100% food right now, and everyone has their opinion about what needs to be done, purees versus baby-led weaning versus breastfeeding versus making your own formula. Like there's all kinds of stuff out there, and you have to pick and choose what works for your family at the end of the day.
Right.
I would love to jump in on that one, because especially as Americans, how many of you guys have seen the documentary Babies? Anybody? Oh yeah.
But I know what you're talking about. I saw the.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's this documentary that profiles. It follows I think 4 different babies in their first year, and it drastically different lifestyles. You know, there's a child who is tied with a rope to a post at one point, I think, during the day because his mom has to go work and, you know, do her work. And we have to make sure that the child doesn't get hurt. So, and, you know, and then contrasted with our children at that age who are going to my gym and taking little exercise classes, you know. So, so yeah, in the United States, we are bombarded with all these different options. We are drowning in choices, and it is the pressure, especially, you know, in I think every strata of people, they have their own different pressures. And if you are in a more educated, perhaps more privileged strata, as Americans are, we tend to be overwhelmed, I think, and there comes the judgment that we talked about before, but it's also kind of liberating to watch a documentary like Babies and realize, you know, we're probably doing everything okay. You know, humans have survived for tens of thousands of years, eating, you know, half of the variety of foods that we get to eat. And, you know, drastically different circumstances, and it's okay, we all survive. Contrast that, though, with where technology and science have brought us. We are just on the crest of learning about all these different nutrients. You know, when I was a kid, it was vitamins. Vitamins were the thing. Now we've got phytonutrients, antioxidants, we've got enzymes. We're just understanding how all of these different tiny little bits of our foods interact to make us live longer, to keep our arteries healthy, to avoid getting diabetes. It's a lot of information, and as you said, it's a choice. You have to do, ultimately you can't be an expert in everything, and you have to get the kid from point A to point B, and you know, you do the best you can. So it's a blessing and a curse, all the information that we're living with.
You know, the thing that keeps popping in my mind is, yes, that there are choices to be made. My big concern right now, though, is genetically modified food.
For sure.
And, I mean, food can be medicine, and food, like my dandelion tea, which is a detox type of tea, food, antioxidants, so on. So food is medicine or food is poison, and I'm just concerned that I mean, and thank God Henry had to be on this different diet, because he would have been eating nothing but genetically modified food. That's all I ate. You know, artificial sweeteners, artificial colors, artificial flavors, and while you know, this is, I guess, in contrast to what I said earlier about judging. It's not so much judge as I wish that other parents were who aren't informed were more informed about what they're putting in their kids' bodies, and you know what all the sugar and corn syrup and all that stuff can do to them. And I know that money's, you know, it can be difficult, and time to prepare it. I mean, I'm lucky that I work from home and I can cook dinner every night. But I do wish that it wasn't so hard to be able to make those choices and to have the information to make those choices.
You know, it makes me think of Barbara Kingsolver's book, Animal Vegetable Miracle, where she really kind of addresses the idea of locally grown, really basic whole foods, and how in our society, because we're all so employed, how Americans have so much pressure to be productive. Like, you know, how much time did you spend at the job this week? Was it only 40 hours or was it 50? You know, we're all so proud if we've done 50 or 60 or whatever. And the whole slow food movement, and how maybe it's a bit more doable than we might think to, you know what, spend less time doing something else that you do and maybe get a little bit more involved in making your own food. You know, it's how we spend our time. We tend to spend a lot of time recreating as Americans. This is, I think, it's our privilege, it's our right. We work hard and we play hard. But then when you have your child and you're thinking, okay, I could spend 15 minutes getting a meal, or I could spend maybe 45 and feed a slightly more quality meal at a, an affordable price,
Yeah, I mean it's totally doable, and I think that part of the problem too is not that it's yes that we all have to work so much, but I think that there's kind of a generational thing where it used to be cool to eat artificial colors and artificial flavors, like in the 70s, right. Kool-Aid and all that stuff. So I feel like kind of that generation didn't teach us how. So we're having to learn how to do it from our friends and from online blogs and, webisodes. And it's just that we're kind of having to figure it out again. And like it's stuff that our grandparents did, but we just didn't get that piece of information.
Right. And if I can I jump in on that?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So I just was going to say, in terms of, we can see how issues around feeding children and children's nutrition kind of tap into the broader kind of food movement or whatever we want to call it, ideas about ethical consumption, kind of socially and environmentally responsible food practices, which many emphasize right now, and, are many kind of laudable to kind of critique the issues with the industrialized food system. But I just wanted to point out, Dawn, at the beginning you were saying this conversation is titled Mothers as Guardians of Children's Nutrition because it's a group of women, but, many dads are also feeding their kids, and that's true. But the pattern is that predominantly this extra time and work and mental effort is being expended by women. So I think it's a really important thing to recognize that this kind of food work that's going on in a lot of families for health reasons, ethical, political commitments that can be really rewarding is still a form of work that's predominantly being performed by women. And even if we've kind of many of us move beyond a time where we have kind of outdated gender ideologies of like, oh, cooking is women's territory, and many people don't believe that now, but it's still predominantly women who are planning family food decisions, doing the shopping, doing the cooking, all of that. And then just another point, just briefly, is that I would want us to think if we imagine a scenario where issues of, for instance, being concerned about genetically modified foods or shielding your children from harmful kind of food chemicals didn't always come down to the individual consumer. Like, could those be things that we address collectively, right? Is there, a place for like state regulation of industry, these kinds of things, because we really see in my research, I've been struck by how many women I speak to who feel like it's their individual personal responsibility to take on these issues that are really systemic problems within the food system, right? So that's just kind of another angle to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked on this program before about the whole idea of sustainable agriculture and how the current models for sort of large-scale industrial agriculture are just simply not sustainable. And to expect the individual to solve that systemic problem, it's not going to be effective. It has to be a problem that's addressed at the root, as well as in our individual lives. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just was going to say, I think that in some ways is experienced at the most intimate level in mothers feeding children, right? Because it's this very very important, emotionally salient aspect of our food lives where those kinds of pressures on the individual come in. So I think that this conversation, it really intertwined with those kinds of conversations about sustaination.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think we're having a bit of an impact because, have you noticed how many organic products are for babies? You can find tons of organic products for babies, maybe not so much for the rest of the population.
Well, that's one thing that, sorry, I don't want to talk too much, but just to jump in quickly on that, we found interesting how many women I've spoken with who talk about prioritizing organic food purchases specifically for their young children and not for the rest of their families as like a cost-saving measure, right? Because so I mean, many people can't afford organic food at all. It's just like not even an option. But I know some women who are kind of strategically saying, okay, I'm going to, you know, try to do everything I can to protect my small child, so we'll get organic for them and, you know, hormone-free meat and whatever else for them, and then, you know, the rest of us, we're contaminated already, so we'll let it go. So, I mean, it is interesting, as you say, that in some ways to kind of our ideas about childhood purity and children as kind of being fragile and needing protection, but that, yeah, as you say, the emphasis on organic products for kids has sort of exploded right now, I think.
Yeah,
I have
interesting.
mothers in my group that do the same thing, that they don't buy the products for themselves. But the thing is, especially in New York and New Jersey, I don't know about elsewhere in the country, it's very expensive for the small farms to get the actual organic certification. So a lot of times you can go to a farmer's market and get like a huge bag of produce for $20 as opposed to going to a grocery store. And if you talk to the farmer, you can understand what their growing practices are, and you don't have to spend a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a thing that a lot of people don't know about either, is that they're trying to shop, you know, once a week at the grocery store, or if they're in the city, on Fresh Direct, getting their groceries delivered, and it's costs a ton of money. But there are options where it could be cost effective to feed the family and not necessarily have organic food, but have local food that isn't grown with any pesticides or genetically modified or anything like that. And that's what we do. Every single week I go to the farmer's market and load up my fridge with produce. And I'm lucky to have farmers markets around.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we talked a little bit last time about food deserts and about how it's often interesting that people who live in the city have better access to fresh grown food than people who live in farm country. That sometimes being in a rural environment means that you actually have fewer choices when it comes to food decisions. So kind of interesting.
I see that. Go to places. Like I went to rural Pennsylvania. My grandparents are from rural Pennsylvania, and I was so excited because there's all these farms, and I wanted to get eggs, and there was no place to get local eggs.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's all for export.
True.
Interesting. I wanted to circle back around to, Kate, what you touched on about how even though we of course encourage and hope to see many more fathers involved in guarding their children's nutrition and making food decisions and food preparation for the family, it does still seem to be a job that disproportionately falls on women's shoulders, that in addition to doing second shift work disproportionately, because this is all sort of part of that second shift work, it kind of naturally falls on women's shoulders. And I'm a little bit, especially not having children of my own, I can stand back from the outside and be concerned about this. But this whole idea about how food preparation was sort of entirely on the shoulders of women, and then corporations moved in the 70s and 80s to take the burden of food preparation and some of those second shift duties off of the shoulders of women so that they can then move into the workplace and be wage earners and hopefully be safeguarding their own retirement and Social Security and that kind of thing. But as we see this now, we're sort of seeing the flip side of that, corporations having taken over all of our food decisions. We're seeing sort of the monster that lurks in that decision. What I'm concerned about is that as we shift back to more food preparation and fresh foods and individuals doing research and making decisions about their own nutrition, that we don't wind up simply reversing the progress that we made in no longer restricting women to handling all of that second shift work, so that we make these food choices and these responsibilities for these good food choices, we make that a parent thing rather than a mother thing.
Oh, so much to say on that issue.
I'm lucky that I met my fiance in one of my cooking classes. So we met in one of my cooking classes. He actually didn't know how to cook at all, and we do it together. And it's fantastic that I have a sous chef to help me out. You know, that's what I say. He's my sous chef. He's my partner in crime in the kitchen. And yes, I do this for a living, but thank goodness, you know, sometimes my day is filled with recipe testing for classes or whatever, and, you know, I'm cooking for other things. I'm not cooking for the family, but it's nice when he gets home that we do these things together. Like, we'll go outside and pick the lettuce or pick the herbs or whatever, and he helps with dinner preparation. But what I'm also noticing in my cooking classes, too, and I'm at a big cooking school in New York City, ICE, Institute of Culinary Education, I'm noticing a lot of parents come together. Now, there may be one parent that doesn't really want to cook, and it could be, it sometimes is the mother.
Sure.
Which is interesting to me, that the father is very interested in cooking and the mother could care less. But they're coming to classes to learn how to use knives, to learn basic cooking skills, and it's really reassuring that I have sold out classes, especially the ones where I teach about the farmers market, that people are coming to learn how to cook with local produce and to introduce foods into their, so like healthier foods into their family meals and whatever. And I love that. I love that people are doing that now.
That is great to hear. That is great to hear. Yeah, Tina, you said you had some stuff to say.
Oh yeah, there are alternatives to, okay, well, let me just say, I think the Industrial Revolution was like one of the worst things that happened to the American diet.
Yes,
I learned
agree.
all this. Abigail Carroll has a wonderful book called Three Squares. I believe it's The Invention of the American Meal. And through reading the book, you can really see how once corporations and marketing, basically advertising, killed our palates. And so, you know, when we were a more agricultural society and things were homemade and we just didn't have access to a whole lot of processed food, food was actually a lot better for you. And yes, the labor was high, you know, and it was women cooking, so that was your day, and you didn't have a career. But you didn't have to sell tomato soup. You know, and I think once they figured out that if I want somebody to buy my food and buy a lot of it so that I can make a lot of money, I better make this taste super delicious. And how do we make things taste super delicious? We're mammals, right? We crave fat, we crave salt, we crave carbohydrates. There are things that we crave because they kept the human race from starving. You know, back when there was, an ice age going on. So that helped us to survive and get to where we are, but right now we don't need that. The Americans are not starving. Well, I shouldn't say that. The bulk of Americans are not starving, but we are bombarded with all of this advertising that is drawing us to these foods that taste delicious and are terrible for you. And what I do as the guardian of my son's nutrition, I've been saying, like, how am I going to fight this? How am I going to pitch a peach? You know, how am I going to make a peach compete with Doritos? Doritos has this amazing shiny red bag. A peach is everywhere, you know, like that came off of a tree. So from the get-go, I have been trying to learn all these farmers markets names.
Oh, you there?
You know, you don't just love apples, honey. You like Gala apples. The Red Delicious you're not so crazy about, but the Gala, look at it. Look at its nice red and yellow exterior. So I'm basically trying to be the advertising company for Whole Foods. Not the store Whole Foods, but for a food that is whole. So there's that battle. And but I want to also, in Abigail Carroll's book, this is a great thing, she mentions that back when, it wasn't actually when women started to join the workforce, it was when domestic servants became not affordable for anybody anymore. People used to have a lot of, you know, maids and cooks and things in their homes.
Wealthy people did, yeah.
Yeah. And then the Industrial Revolution came along. These people went to work in factories, and nobody was there to help you cook anymore. And so mom is there alone, trying to make everything from scratch for the whole family. So what these clever women did, they started co-op kitchens. They would have like a church, and they would get together, and they would say, okay, it's your turn on Monday to make the meal. And so one woman would be in charge, and she'd make a huge meal. Everybody would just show up for dinner, and then the next night it would be somebody else's turn. So this was a very female-centered way of addressing this problem. How am I supposed to provide for my family the way I'm used to providing for them, with good home-cooked meals, and still do all the housework and do everything myself? And those eventually faded out, and I wish I could remember exactly why. I think there was it caught on for a while, and then it faded away. But think about that. Think if we did that. And I do have some friends, parents of, it's a two-mom household actually, of a child that goes to school with my son, and two career women, great careers. When do they have time to cook? They have twins, you know, busy household. They have a homemade meal delivery service. So it's like a subscription service. So it's not just ordering in from a restaurant. It's actually people making food, and they, you know, here's your home-cooked meal delivered to your home. So there are options out there, and it just makes you think, well, maybe we are going to have to think creatively. If we want to go back to more basic foods, less processed, more whole foods cooking, what's it going to take?
Well, and Dawn, I want to address what you said too, which is another about, like, are women going to be shoved back into this role of cooking? I think that people are different now. And I mean, I know men that are the stay-at-home parent, and so I think that now there's a choice, that it's not just it's going to be the woman who's going to stay at home. It could be the man. So even though, you know, I don't think we're all going to be shoved back into a kitchen, but at the same time, I mean, yes, I am definitely a feminist. I believe we are humans and we're equal, but I want to be the one at home now. And I know a lot of my friends, even, you know, I have an attorney friend who works more than she should, and because, you know, they make her, but she wants to be home. And so for me, I'm like, you know, honey, go get a job, work, do your thing. I want to stay at home. I want to be with my kid. And there's can be a bit of a struggle, because I think that the men want to stay at home with their families too, because I think that we're starting to see that that's what's really important, is fostering them and building our families and feeding good food and teaching good lessons and being present is more important than making, you know, buckets of money and eating, you know, artificial everything. So I think there's a choice.
Interesting. Yeah, Kate, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, I think it's a really important point that shows how complicated these issues are. You know, to say that it does tend to still be now, you know, absolutely, you're right. There's been massive shifts, not only in our, you know, ideas and expectations, but also actually in the sharing of food work. It is more equitable now than it was, you know, generations past, decades past. But I think, you know, part of what you're shedding light on is that it's complicated. It's not necessarily like women, and specifically mothers, are engaging in all of these time and labor-intensive practices to feed their kids because they feel forced into it, right? Because someone necessarily is, you know, has delegated that role to them. But it's also because you know, they're invested in it. It's important to your identity, to, you know, you maybe are more informed than your partner in lots of situations, right? So it can be a kind of complex constellation of factors that lead to the fact that it's still often, I think, women that are doing this work. And one of the things that we found interesting. Oh, sorry, you gotta stop.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I just was going to say that a big part of the work that our research shows still is very much tends to be performed by women is the like invisible planning work. So, you know, deciding what needs to be purchased, even if then the work of the shopping itself is equally shared, or the work of the cooking itself is equally shared. Who's researching, who's planning, who's managing people's different preferences and nutritional needs. We found it, in our research at least, it tends to still be women.
Interesting. And yeah, one thing I also wanted to sort of tag on this discussion is the idea that systemic change is necessary in terms of it's sometimes more difficult for the father, for the man in the relationship to get time off from work to spend time with their kids. They don't get maternity leave. It's in some ways it's more allowed or more perceived as being acceptable for the woman to take the day off to be home with a sick child than it is for the man to take the day off to be home with a sick child. And so in order for this hopefully continuing trend of equality to continue, there also need to be changes to allow the fathers to have the same kinds of choices that the mothers have.
Absolutely.
So it's so it's a little bit of both. Well, we are God, time goes so fast. We are at the end of our hour here, so I just want to go around one more time and have everybody say, is there anything that you're working on specifically right now that you want to tell us a little bit about, and wrap it up that way. So go ahead. Who wants to go first?
I'll go, if that's cool. I've got two things I'm doing. One is this Sunday. It's the group I volunteer with, Talk About Curing Autism, is having their picnic in Irvine at the Irvine Ranch Outdoor and Educational Center. It's from 11 until 3:30, and you can get details on that by going to their website, TACA, TACA now.org. So, and there's going to be plenty of food options. There's going to be gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free, nut-free there. So it's a really wonderful opportunity. And I'm also actually working on a show. It's called Tom and Barry, 2 Nights Only. It's a musical adaptation of the film Brothers of the Head, about conjoined twin punk rock band in the 70s. I know. And it's going to be at the Hollywood Fringe at the Lillian Theater June 5th, 13th, and 27th at different times. But you can get more details about that at facebook.com/TomandBarry. Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Tina, you want to go?
Oh, sure. I am just going to make a general pitch for finding and getting to your local farmers market. Lots of people have them right down the street, and they've never ever been. Mine is my favorite's the Encino, Van Nuys area farmers market. It has wonderful parking. You should go. It's wonderful. But really, look it up. It's online. Everything's online these days. And if you think it's too pricey, just go have a look. Check it out. You're surprised probably.
Very cool. Very cool. Carla, how about you?
I second the farmers market, and it's so fabulous. It's such a great activity for your kids too.
Yeah.
I teach cooking classes in New York City, and I actually teach a Cook the Green Market class. So I'm teaching a bunch of them this summer. My schedule is on my blog. It's redclog.kitchen.com. And my schedule is right there. I'm also working on a blog redo, and I'm going to be doing more recipes for mamas. So I'm going to look at postpartum, feeding kids, and family meals. So that's coming up. I'm redoing the blog this summer, so hopefully by September it will be launched with more family-oriented stuff.
Nice. Terrific. How about you, Kate?
Okay, I just wanted to say first, Carla, way to go with your little one for this whole discussion. Like, it's actually really nice. It's kind of like soothing as you're like petting her head. Very nice.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll make a quick plug for a forthcoming book that I've written with a Toronto sociologist named Jose Johnston, and the book is called Food and Femininity. And it's coming out this fall. I think now the publication date isn't until November with Bloomsbury Press. So if you just search online "food and femininity," you'll see the webpage. There's a chapter on feeding kids. There's chapters on ethical consumption, shopping, cooking, pleasure, and talking about all of these kinds of shifting gender expectations and dynamics today.
Very cool. Very cool. And I'll put in a plug for, I'm also doing a fringe show at the Hollywood Fringe Fest. It's called 50 Shades of Shrew. And it is a taming, it is Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew set in a BDSM dungeon.
Amazing.
So, yeah, so we'll be having some fun and some spankings. And that happens in June, and if you look on the Hollywood Fringe Festival website and Google Shrew, you will find our page, and if you're in the area, we'd love to have you stop by and check us out. So, thank you so much, ladies. This was a wonderful, wonderful discussion.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Yay!
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's great to meet you.
Great meeting you too. And we will see you all next month for our next topic on For Fork's Sake. Everybody have a great day.